Alright guys, so finally here is the Gauntlet guide. I broke it up into 5 different sections. So first we're going to go over the moveset and the combos. Then next we're going to go into the strings. After that it's going to be the onstage and offstage of gauntlets. And we're then going to go into different legend tips that I have with like working signatures into the move kit. And then finally it's going to be just matchups, what gauntlets are pretty much good and bad against playing. And yep, that'll be it. So into the move set. So before I do the combos, I'm just going to do a quick run through of every move. So first you have D-Light, 13 damage. It's really fast, a very critical combo starter. Then next you have Sidelight as well. It's a good setup. It's a good reading tool. And it's just in general really good at catching a lot of like dodges left and right. After that we have Enlight, super fast, not too punishable, and it also does nice 15 damage, not too high, not too low. Then we have Nair. Nair is 12 damage, and it is super great for continuing strings and also for gimping off stage. Now we have Dare, which also is 15 damage. However, it is probably the most punishable aerial on gauntlets, and I really think that if any move on gauntlets would ever to be getting a buff, it would be Dare. But it also is really good for stringing. Next, we have Sare, which is another 15 damage move. This is great for continuing after like a Nair if you want to do it in gimp off stage. It also is good on stage. It's probably between Nair and Sare, this might be the better aerial just because how useful it is both on stage and off stage, because you can use it as an approach either way. Gauntlet Recovery is 17 damage, and it does have some force drop off. They did nerf it a while ago, but if you hit it at the beginning, you're going to be getting a lot more force than if you were to like hit it at the very end. And it's super fast. You can't really get too many early kills with it. However, it's great at damage building, following up off of Sidelight or doing like GC D-Light into recovery combo for the kill, so it's good there. And then finally we have Ground Pound. Gauntlet Ground Pound, they most recently buffed it, I'm pretty sure in the most recent patch, and it is now super quick. It does 19 damage as well. I'm gonna guess everyone's familiar with this move. Off stage it's fantastic. On stage you can integrate it into strings, and I'll probably show that later on. So now moving into the combos, there's several good damage building combos for gauntlets. It's kind of up to the user what they want to use. Now, the biggest one I recommend, or the main two that you're going to be seeing from people, are D-Light Dare and D-Light Sidelight. Those two are the probably best ones for setting up. I would say there is D-Light Enlight too. However, D-Light Enlight is like great for just like moving your opponent around more than anything. You can use it though to push your opponent off. It does 28 damage, so it's nothing to scoff at. Next combo I want to look at would be GC D-Light combos, which there's 2 main ones that are going to come to mind. That would be GC D-Light Nair, which is great. If you catch their dodge, then you're going to be able to do some strings with that, which we'll talk about later on. And then also the Killing Blow with on gauntlets is GC D-Light into recovery. So there's a combo. It works at all health, but let me do it at a later health. Alright, so I set the bot to 150 damage. Now, if we just check this out, bot is going to die. This is the earliest you can get a kill with GC D-Light into recovery on Brawlhalla. This is 5 force versus 5 defense, so you can test this out on different maps, but for this guide, we'll just be testing on small Brawlhalla. Okay, so now that we covered just a couple of the more basic combos, I want to look into the strings. Now, I will say when doing these strings, there's probably going to be some I don't cover. I'm just going to be mainly covering the ones that I use and the ones that I see on pretty much a daily basis of playing gauntlets. I always say there's so many different like options you can take with gauntlets. It's the same thing for certain other weapons like guitars and scythe. You just have to be creative. So if I don't cover an option that you do, don't feel like I, don't know what it is or I'm just not acknowledging it. Understand that there's just so many different things that one can do that it's hard to cover them all. So for this, we're going to treat like the bot has no dodge for now. There's not really a reason to have it set. But if the player were to have no dodge. So for this demonstration, we're going to treat the bot as the player. We're not going to have a dodge set for now, but I just want to show some stuff off of Sidelight. Now, keep in mind, I will just be using Sidelight for this. However, you can possibly get the D-Light into Sidelight depending on how they move and where you catch them. All right, so the first thing I want to show off is pretty much a staple for Gauntlets in general, and that would be Sidelight Nair. You can see that is 3 dodge frames. Let me just turn off damage so you can see that better again. So Sidelight into Nair, 3 frames. Now, if you know your frames, you know that 3 dodge frames is enough for someone to jump out of it. So if the player is smart and they know when to get out, they can technically jump out of this, which is just something that Gauntlet players kind of have to live with. It's not the biggest deal in the world. Even at 0 health, it's the same thing. It's just part of it. Don't get too caught up in it. It's not that big of a deal, because a lot of the times people do tend to forget. As silly as it sounded, negligent as it sounds, it's fine. So what we're going to be doing off of Sidelight Nair is we're going to be doing a GC D-Light into recovery. We can do Nair. It just depends on when you catch the dodge and how much stage you have, how far you want to take it. There's so many different options. Like I said, this is where you can kind of do what you want, but there is one specific combo in particular, or string, that is the most damaging. So right there, that is the most damaging string you can do on Gauntlets if you catch their dodge. Now, notice that there was a decent amount of dodge frames on it. So say they have no dodge, you catch them. So there's 4 dodge frames there, then there was 5. The main one we want to look out for is the 4 after the GC D-Light into Nair, because that one in particular, if you don't set it up right, or if they're in a weird position, they can end up actually falling out of it, which is a problem, because then at that point, you burn your GC and they can catch you, and that's no good. However, if the spacing's right and the damage is good, as you see, it's the same there, even when I bumped up the damage. You're going to be getting the most damage as you can, like I said. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head. However, it is strong. And you notice I turned around the Nair. I turned around the Nair because if the opponent's at an early health, there's no reason for you to really be taking them off here, because let's do that again. Except let's just throw them. Let's throw them off. Okay, so you saw I threw them off, and it was just all right, what now? Because they're at white, you're not really going to be throwing them super down far or anything to where you can set up. It's pretty light. A Nair's not going to have so much force. Now, the next combo off of GC D-Light, I want to do D-Light into recovery. This one is true, so if we do this, now you notice that there is still that window where they can fast fall. However, if you do hit this one at a later damage, this is better for maybe getting them in a bad spot, or if you caught the dodge kind of late, then you can kind of just ensure that you're going to get this full combo in, which will mean, or full string in, with ending the combo with the D-Light recovery, and then you'll be able to maybe get a kill off of it, or also just, they won't be able to dodge. All right. Next is another one. Now, okay, say you do, let's go back to the Nair where we take them off stage. Now, in this case, because the opponent is more damaged, they're going to be thrown farther, which allows us to set up an edge guard scenario. So, say we hit our Sidelight Nair. Now, that's a more realistic scenario. Obviously, the bot's resetting, but that is a way more realistic scenario when you're going to want to just throw them off stage. Just imagine if this was a stage at a less wall, like Mammoth, then it would even be better, because then, you can set up maybe with a ground pound. It's just up to the user's discretion at that point. There is one last one I want to cover, and that would be this. So that was Sidelight Nair into a GC D-Light, and then I did a turnaround into recovery. Now, the reason I did the turnaround again was because this is a smaller stage. If the bot was over here, then I don't need to do the turnaround. However, given that I am doing it from the center, I need to do that turnaround. Keep in mind, though, that when you do the turnaround Nair, your momentum stops. So if I were to do a Nair like that, you see how there's a little bit of momentum on it. However, if I were to just hit it like that, they barely move. So Momentum is such a big factor, and you just want to be aware that sometimes the turnaround nair into recovery won't always work. Okay, now there is one read off of Endlight that I do usually go for, and it's if I think the opponent is going to dodge up. That would be this. It would be Endlight into dash jump dare. So right there, I caught him. And also something to note is after you do that, you can get at least one more hit in. Usually you can only get one more hit in, but it's just a read I like going for. Even if, say you were to miss the dare, say they ended up dodging right. Let's say the bot dodges right and you miss. Not a big deal, right? It's gonna be a bit harder for them to punish. It's just also a good mix-up. So this isn't something I would rely on every single time. However, it is good to just occasionally do once in a while just to mix things up. Oh yeah, another thing to note though about that is if you were to hit this, you can reverse it. Let me set the bot back to up. You can reverse it, and you then can do some stuff off that. I'm doing nair off of it, but also you can do recovery, and then maybe that'll set you up for further string. Oh yeah, there was also another 2 combos off of nair that I want to cover, which I actually spaced out. One is basic, where you just do nair into sair. That one is good for if you want to just push the opponent off stage without having to commit too much yourself. So it's obviously not the most damage, but just positioning wise, you can see there that they did get pushed off quite far. I don't use it a ton. However, if you're not sure if you're going to be able to hit the full string, you want to go for a bit of a safer option, it is nice. And then the final one's probably the one I use to kill the most, if I'm being honest, if I do catch a dodge. And this would be sidelight nair into sidelight recovery. I think this one, I don't know how many Gauntlet users actually take advantage of this, but you see there, that's two dodge frames. There's not really any spot aside from this nair where the user could get out of it. They're not going to be able to jump the sidelight into recovery either. Okay, now I want to look at just a few other dodge reads. There's one in particular that can cover a few different options, but I'm really only going to show it with this. It's a good neutral dodge catch. It's a good mix-up off of D-Light Dare. So I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to tell you what I did. Okay, so the read I'm going to show you guys is D-Light Dare, and then a dash jump turnaround nair. It is super, super useful at catching up dodges. It also can lead into a massive string, which is, yeah, just more damage, possibly a kill. It's just something good to do. You always want to be moving forward with gauntlets, so this is just one of those things that is really, really good. All right, so there was like the full string that you can get off of it. You can do recovery, however, you got to be careful that you don't accidentally like cancel into a NSIG or something. I was trying to practice that a few times, and that's what ended up happening. But dare is pretty easy, and also on a stage like this, it sets up and pushes them off stage, which is where you want to be with gauntlets for sure. Okay, now there's something else I've been trying more recently that I want to cover, and that would be doing an Endlight into dash forward and then sidelight. Now, what you do after the sidelight, I'll leave up to you. You can implement one of the other strings that I've shown you. However, this is just another way of getting a string and also just keeping pressure on the opponent. Worst case scenario, they end up punishing you for your sidelight. However, if they were unarmed and they were to do a wake up, then they're just going to clash. But if they did have a weapon, like spear especially, they could end up maybe hitting you with the D-Light. But nothing too crazy to worry about. But it is something good. That's only really going to work yellowish to white health. So try and take advantage of that. All right, so I've covered the strings and just kind of what I use, as well as the different combos and the moveset of the kit. So now I want to look at just general tips for on-stage and off-stage gameplay. So I think in general, on-stage gauntlets, you should really always be looking to continue the pressure. Against slower weapons, you want to make sure you're always staying on them. So especially something like axe or lance or hammer, if you're gonna, you're gonna commit to a combo, you might as well then start just going for a read and just seeing what you can get. Because gauntlets do have short range, but they are relatively fast compared to the rest of the weapons. So you really, really want to take advantage of that. You don't want to get too lazy and just always be waiting for something. Another thing is, don't get too caught up in like fishing for sidelight, if you're really gonna be looking for any move, I mentioned earlier, you just really want to be using D-Light as much as you can to start stuff. Another thing to note on stage, or I guess more in the air, is Gauntlet's biggest weakness is that they don't really have much range when coming down. So say you have no options, that's like your best option, that or a ground pound, and that's pretty bad, because that's just gonna probably lead into you getting punished by your opponent, given how laggy Dare is, and also ground pound, like they can see it coming from a mile away. So if you're caught up in the air with gauntlets, you know, maybe just mix up your movement around. Don't try and think about landing with a move. Just use Sarah to move around a bit. Fast fall, just mix it up, get back to the ground as much as you can. If you can get a down weapon throw, abuse it, because weapon throws are just super good for off stage. So one of Gauntlet's biggest weaknesses on stage is that if you get put up in the air, they don't really have great options to cover your landings. You have Dare and you have ground pound. So one thing I would say is to just make sure that if you are coming down with like no options, maybe burn time in the air. If you have no dodge, just use Sarah and you might get your dodge back in time before you land. So here, just burning. Okay, now I land. But yeah, down weapon throws are great also. But just in general, you don't really want to get caught in this spot. With gauntlets, there's a lot of weapons that can end up just anti-airing you super hard, and you're just not going to be able to do anything. Okay, so this one's a little hard to show in training room. However, when it comes to gauntlets off stage, this is where they shine. A lot of weapons, they're going to just be able to be beat out by gauntlet ground pound alone. However, if you're taking an opponent off stage, say you hit them with Nair, again, in most cases, you got to probably read your opponent's movement first. So maybe the first time you take them off, just see what happens. Be a little tentative. That's one way of approaching it. Or you could just say you hit the Nair. You could just go for a Sarah after. I think that's usually a safe bet. Because the thing is, if they jump, they're going to get hit by it. If they jump and they see it coming, they're going to also have to burn their dodge. It just allows you to kind of gauge what they're going to do without giving too much of a risk to yourself. But yeah, gauntlets off stage, really keep it simple. Don't get too fancy. The most fancy you want to be is, say your opponent's coming back at an angle where they need to maybe use a dodge and you're on the wall. You don't really want to give them the wall back. You don't want to let them maybe touch, so you have to like reset the whole edge guard again. So what you could do, and this is kind of dangerous if you mess it up, however, if you get good at it, it's going to be really useful, is you could space out a GC light, and then off of that GC light, you're going to be able to chase dodge and you can hit your Nair. Make sure you do Nair. Don't do a recovery, because then you basically just save the opponent. However, if you do hit the GC light into Nair, you're going to throw them down, and that means they probably won't be able to get back. But make sure when you do this, you know, you don't like do it with no jumps or anything, because then you're just as screwed as they are. So one string that is newer because of the more recent ground pound change, I say more recent, it's relatively new, but one thing that did come out of the ground pound change was that you could do D-Light into ground pound, and it's only 2 frames. So if your opponent's like peeking over the edge like this, and you're kind of where the bot is, say I'm the opponent and the bot's you can do D-Light and then dash jump ground pound, and it's going to be 2 frames. You know, we all know how strong ground pound is. Even if they have their dodge, it's worth going for just because how fast it is. If they dodge it, then, you know, maybe rethink it and don't use it right away. Now, if they do dodge it, don't freak out. You are going to be in a weird spot. You're probably going to have to get back to stage. Just keep in mind that next time you do it, that they're aware of it and that they're going to react to it. So there's the string. And as you can see, that's at 110 damage. If we bumped it up to, say, 130, almost kills, but at the very least, you're then set up to where you can get another edge guard off. But it's just great at keeping your opponents off stage and down there. Okay, so the next is going to be the sections of just general legend tips and mainly integrating the signature kit with the just gauntlet moves. So first, since I'm on Val, we can just look at Val really quick, and I'll just kind of run really quick through. So the first one I want to show is D-Sig into recovery or Nair. This is something that's great. D-Sig's great for spacing out, and recovery is actually a tighter dodge window than people think, so a lot of people get hit by it. But if anything, it's forcing a dodge, or at the very least creating space. So as you saw, it's only 3 dodge frames. So the next read I want to show with your SIGs is on Val, side SIG is actually pretty good for strings. I first saw it used really well into strings when Addy Mestic was playing Val at Worlds. I mean, he still is, but at Worlds, he made really good use of side SIG off of recovery mainly. Recovery and also sidelight, it's really valuable. So I'm going to show you those two now. Now the second one with the recovery, it's a bit harder to demonstrate just because, you know, it's hard to really show off the bot. So pretend like I hit the sidelight recovery and then the opponent's in the air, and then you're using the side SIG to catch them as they're trying to like fall down quick. Now the last read that I use with Val SIGs that I kind of want to take credit for, I guess, or at the very least, I feel like I've used it the most. It is one that isn't even that great of a read. However, it is, again, just a mix-up that you can try. It's almost similar to doing the N-Light into Dare dodge read. And it is N-Light into N-Sig. This catches a few different dodges, so one of them is up again. As you see, it's just good damage, and it is, again, just a mix-up to do. So N-Light into N-Sig is just a good mix-up, and as you can see, it does, if you get the full N-Sig, you're going to be doing 26 damage. Okay, so next is Wu Shang, and I think Wu Shang is possibly the best aside from Petra for integrating the signatures into the strings. Now, this one is one that is very common that I use a lot, so these are ones that I find to be the most practical, especially since I'm a Wu Shang player. First is N-Light into side SIG. Now, keep in mind, the spacing on this is important, so depending on how far the opponent goes, sometimes you have to chase dodge, sometimes you won't. And also, for example, if they were to dodge right in this case, so if they dodged in, they also get caught there. This is part of the great benefit of having a character that has a 2-part SIG. So just keep in mind when to chase dodge and, you know, what exactly the options they can cover, because they can cover quite a few. And also, if you end up hitting it to where it spikes, it's super deadly. Now the next one might seem a little bit impractical, however, I can promise you that this is probably your best opening read to go for. This would be doing sidelight into D-Sig on Wu Shang. This covers so many different dodges. That was a dodge to the right. Now let's try a dodge down. Catches that as well. Down right as well, it should catch. Yeah, so that's 3 dodges alone that it covers, and it also is just a very hard-hitting SIG. As you saw, I mean, that alone was 32 damage. Now granted, I had the charge in there, but it's a 30 damage SIG at least, so it's really important that you utilize Wu Shang Gauntlet D-Sig. Also sliding off stage to catch an opponent, hard to show in training room, but you see me use this all the time, and it's really effective. Last read I want to show is doing D-Light into N-Sig. Right there, you can see it catches neutral dodge. It also can catch a dodge away if you do a dash jump. If you give a little hesitation, it can also catch a dodge in. Okay, next is the legend that many consider to be the best Gauntlet character, and that would be Petra. This character in general has just crazy fast SIGs, so you're able to really utilize them in how you perform different reads. So let's just go over them quick. So as you saw there, side SIG into recovery, I got down to 1 frame. This is good early on if you just for whatever reason end up hitting a side SIG. It does make use of the up variation, so keep that in mind as you are playing Petra. So right there was the side SIG with the up input into a recovery. You do a chase dodge right after you hit the side SIG, so it is a tight input. However, it is 1 frame, And it also is just good if for whatever reason you do tag them with a random side sig early on. So this next sig, end sig, is probably the most important out of the three. It hits super hard, it covers a lot. It's basically a boosted Gauntlet sidelight. So here's a good way of using it. Hit them with sidelight, you catch them with an up read. It's almost always worth going for at least a few times a game. However, if they do start catching on, then you're probably going to want to chill out and mix it up with a few different options. That killed at 120, by the way. Right there, you see it catching the dodge away. So instead of doing a double sidelight read, you could do sidelight into end sig. So the last dodge that it catches is a dodge up and away. As you can see, it does not catch, however, a down and away dodge. So that is the only dodge it does not catch if they are going to dodge away. Now Petra D-Sig, using it in strings is kind of hard. However, it is a sig that is just super tough in general. It can be hard to space. However, it is super rewarding if you just hit. So I just recommending using this in raw neutral. Next, we're going to be looking at Core. He's similar to Val in how the SIGs can work. He does have two in particular that are pretty good, and that would be using D-Sig and Side-Sig for strings. Alright, so the first read I want to show on Core is with the D-Sig and is off a sidelight. This is one that I see a lot of Core users using. Core D-Sig in general is super good. I think Core's signature kit in general is underrated, but here it is. And that was at 120 health. So the next one, like I said, is with the side sig, and it is also off a sidelight. If you do notice, a lot of these sigs are best used off a mix-up on sidelight. So here it is. And that was at 110 health. Finally, again, off of sidelight. This is the last read I will be showing you. So with Core, his end sig is great at spiking. So if you are towards the end of the stage, you can do a sidelight, and it only catches up reads. However, it is worth probably trying at least once or twice a game, as it is super rewarding. Now with Cross, there really isn't any good reads to really do with him. The best I can recommend is similar to Core with doing a sidelight and a side sig mainly. However, off of D-Light, it is worth probably attempting to go for at least one or two of these a game. It's important for any of these to just give them a try. So here it is. It is D-Light into end sig. And that was at 90 health. The only other read I really use for Cross ever is off a sidelight, as you might suspect, and it is sidelight into GC to GC side sig, and this is good for catching down dodges. And you're gonna get a 100% guaranteed kill from the middle of the stage at 100 damage. I won't spend that much time on Caspian because I don't really feel like his signature kit is too great for strings. However, just some general tips is his end sig you can attack before it's even over, so really make use of that. End light into a D sig can be useful at some points. Same thought process with side sig, but yeah, all of Caspian's sigs are just really up close and personal, so just use them as you see fit, and you should find some success with them. Same thing with Zariel as with Caspian. These sigs aren't super great for stringing. They are good in general though, just to throw out and use. The only read with Zariel that is really worth probably trying for every once in a while is maybe an end sig read, or off of an end light you can just throw out a side sig if they do dodge in or maybe spot dodge, similar to Shang. Same thought process. So here it is with sidelight into end sig. And that killed at 110. Now the next legend I want to look at is Rayman. Now Rayman, his signatures are very fast. He's just in general a mobile character. I think a lot of his power lies in his axe. I think many people would agree. However, he does have good signatures. If you give a little charge, you can get the range off of it. And also his D-Sig is also great for helping you edge guard. So I don't really have any big tips for Rayman. But keep in mind his SIGs are fast, so definitely utilize the speed. On Mordex, there really is only one read that I would recommend trying off Gauntlets. His Gauntlets are very good. Like the signature kits in general for Mordex are super solid. However, his Gauntlet signature, the only one that I've really seen like Sandstorm use, for example, is D-Light into D-Sig. Now this is just a good mix-up off D-Light to catch your opponent off guard. So as you saw there, it was 7 dodge frames. However, like I said, there isn't really too much you can do with the Mordex gauntlets, at least as far as I know. But however, it is just a good mix-up to do, because if you do hit it, you are going to be getting a pretty big spike, as that was only at 90 damage. So maybe just try mixing it up. Now with Onyx, it's a character I've been playing a lot more. This is the newest character in the game, as well as the newest Gauntlet legend. So I have been testing it out, and let me just put it this way. As of now, the SIGs are broken. So you really should be making use of these SIGs with or without implementing them in strings. They all are just super good, so just make sure you're using them a lot. Now the first SIG is D-Sig, which is super fast. Is almost like Petra has Gauntlet N-Sig, that's a super boosted side light. This is like a super boosted D-Light. So there's a few ways I've come up with using her SIGs, and let's just cover how I use the D-Sig on Onyx first. So there's the first one. That is if your opponent is dodging away, which a lot of people like to do. So it's good also because keep in mind, like I mentioned earlier, these SIGs are so hard to punish. So if you do whiff, who cares? Because chances of you getting punished are super low right now. Now something else that I have actually kind of kept in mind and figured out, because I play Scythe, a lot of people, when you push them off stage, they do that dodge in, which allows you to catch them with like a GC sidelight and then possibly get a 0 to death off of them. However, on Onyx, there's something similar with side sig. So say we hit our opponent and we end up pushing them off stage. So let's bump up the damage a little bit. With side sig, we can basically do the same thing as you would on Scythe. However, instead of a light move into a light move, we have N-Light into side sig. The final tip I have for Onyx is another one off a D-Light there, and it is with using N-Sig. So I'll just show the few different dodges it covers, but N-Sig I think is going to be underrated. It hits pretty hard. However, it mainly just hits in the front. So there was one of the dodges it covers, which was the neutral. There, it covered up dodge. And right there as well, it caught up left. So that's 3 different dodges. I'm sure if you implement dashes and stuff, you can catch other ones too. However, let's get into the matchups. So the only bad matchups that I really truly see for gauntlets are both hammer and bow. Both of them are great at it for different reasons, but hammers is just really great at walling out a lot of gauntlets approaches. And a big thing is, like I mentioned earlier, Gauntlet's weakness is coming down in the air, and hammer can cover that really well. Now bow, I would say gauntlets lose to bow is mainly because of how good bow is at juggling, and also the grounded game is really strong with anti-airs. Not to mention, it can just outspace you completely, and it also is very fluid and fast. The only weapon that I think gauntlets have a definite advantage over would probably be Axe. Axe, it is really good, and it's not saying that Axe can't still destroy gauntlets if used properly. Things like D-Light and Nair are super deadly, not to mention Sidelight Nair is just a heap of damage. But however, Axe is still slow, so if you end up getting a hit on an Axe player, just keep it going, keep it moving. You just want to keep on pressuring. Alright guys, so that's the Gauntlet guide. I really do appreciate all the support that's been happening lately. I have no plans on slowing down, and big thanks to Flipside for editing this. Hopefully it turns out to be what you guys were wanting, or at the very least you can take something away from it. So thanks for watching, see you next time.